sophisticated systems as well. You're going to need, Madam Speaker, new HRD software, human resource development software, to run a modern entity. And that's also not cheap, Madam Speaker. You are going to need new accounting systems to be in place to go along with the Executor plus and all these sorts of things that they have to do. But accounting software and hardware is going to have to be changed. I can anticipate that. And all told, those things, Madam Speaker, may come up to a little sum. The minister did answer one of the questions I raised here, Madam Speaker. But I'm not sure that the question is still not pertinent. Why now? Why at the end of October, when the new budgetary year starts in another month or two, and the activities are for next year? And he gave an answer that they wanted to have much of the operation equipment well ahead of time. And I don't think it's just because that they have to be ahead of time, because if you're going to get new equipment, invariably it might also require some training of the operation staff to handle these new sets of equipment. So I'm helping answer my own questions. As I said, I did ask what is this money to be spent on, and an answer being given. That has been detailed, and perhaps the minister will speak in greater details of that. But Madam Speaker, it's not unfair of the opposition to ask of the government, Minister of Finance, Minister of Urban Development, the Prime Minister himself, what is the level of reportage? What is your level of accountability to us on this side of the house? What is your level of accountability to the people who have put us into office? I mean, you said that the port is going to be completed sometime May next year. I mean, I haven't even had the courtesy, nor is my colleague West Kingston or East Kingston, all of us are in interest. The party as a whole, all of us here, to have even a visit, a tour, a peep into this new modern port. I mean, to repeat myself, because I said it on when we did the original bill, Madam, it is really disrespect of the parliamentary opposition of the highest order. And you're leaving us to operate in good faith, on a matter for which there should be such harmony and unity and understanding and cooperation and oneness of mind, that we are addressing an infrastructural improvement that is for us all, Vincentians. It's not ULP, it's not NDP, or even if it can't be. It's for all of us. We don't have that. Earlier today, I wanted to remind, when we were speaking on the burial peril sets of questions, why is it on that side of the house you are so resolute that St. Vincent and us gathered here, we are not a unity government? We know that. And that we are so simply supposed to confine ourselves to parliamentary responsibilities here and now. Seen but not heard. But I don't think that's what our people want of us. And I've avoided saying supporters, because there are some issues and conversations that must take place in this Honorable House, Madam Speaker, that are bigger than all of us here, because in the moment, in the twinkle of an eye, we are all gone. The very port that we're talking about was put there in 1964, the Joshua's and others. I think it cost $1 million of Canadian funds. We're here now speaking about $600 million of other people's money and a little of our money, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and again, it may come from the Minister of Urban Development. We don't even know in the acquisition of these sets of equipment, $40 million worth of it, how much of the old assets, systems of inventory that are being replaced might be disposed of, or better disposed of, sold off. Or how much of it will be carried over. We heard some of it. You heard those kinds of conversations before, when the Argyle Airport was completed, we were going to move the batch, the plant from here to there, and all these sorts of things were supposed to have more shelf life and do a lot of things for us. It never happened, as far as I know. And to fix all the roads, tell us, Madam Speaker, All this is information to which we have a right, because we could know that by disposing of them, that will reduce the borrowings by 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, no million, thousands. We don't know, Madam Speaker. Again, you're expecting us to proceed on good faith. So, Madam Speaker, in a sense, that's really one side of the equation. The here and now, where we are. So, even except, Madam Speaker, I must also concede again, there's a little not confusion, because I'm still at the stage where I'm very clear-eyed on other things. That we have had conversations with the banks. Bank of St. Vincent will supply $20 million, and the bank in Grenada will supply the other $20 million. Yet the resolution itself speaks about going to the Regional Security Exchange. I heard that mentioned. So if in fact that the money is coming out as bank loans, maybe I'm not so good on financing mechanisms and modalities. I didn't see how that's squared with the bond on the Regional Security Exchange. But I also heard the minister in reading the resolution speaks about the bank's authority to borrow. I don't speak on any Prime Minister, I have to say, but it distracts me a little bit, Find a nice way to tell him to go to his seat for me, please. I am continuing because I don't want to be rude, because I don't think he set out to be there, but I just want to say that how it impacts me, when he'll say bad, But it's stating that the corporation had the right to borrow. He mentioned bonds, for example. Well, I don't know that any body corporate, and I've been around with VINLEC for a little bit. There's one him, the Honorable Daniel Cummins. I don't know if the Water Authority ever in all of the years issued bonds. Have you ever? I don't even know if they could. I don't know that a statutory corporation can issue bonds. So, and then he went on to say that they could also raise this money by stock. And again, I don't know if a statutory corporation can so identify the equity owners and raise funds by the issuing of part ownership in a government corporation. It's novel, and maybe it's a good idea, and maybe it's where we need to go. But I don't know if either of those two mechanisms, as explained, are in fact available to the authority. The bonds or the issuing of stock. And let me go forward to come back. Maybe we may well consider in the architecture of what this modern port, how it's going to function, that we upgraded from being a statutory corporation to become a body corporate. And in fact, my own suspicion is that ideally, in this modern age, that is the better way to go. Because you see, what is happening to us here? Sure.
I just wanted to read for the honorable member, because I see partly where you're going, but I don't want you to go too far off course, honorable member. Section 4 of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Port Authority Act says as follows, and you'll see why I'm reading it. Section 4 is called Establishment of the Authority. There is hereby established for the purposes of this act a body to be called the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Port Authority. That's one. Section 2. The authority shall be a body corporate with perpetual succession and a common seal, and with the power as such to enter into contracts, to sue and to be sued by law in its corporate name, and maybe for all purposes be described by such name, to acquire, hold, mortgage, lease, dispose of all kinds of property, movable and immovable, and to do and perform such tasks and things as body corporates may by law do and perform subject to the provisions of this act.
Well, the information is quite appropriate and appreciated, Mr. Minister of Finance, but you remember at the top of the table, I asked in my presentation whether the Port Authority was a statutory corporation. Well, a statutory corporation is not a body corporate. Yes. It's not a private company. Let me say that. It's not a private company.
I think what a statutory corporation is a body corporate as declared under the Act. But you can have a state corporation, a wholly owned state corporation, not under an act of parliament, but incorporated under the Companies Act. And that is what you're calling a body corporate. But a statutory body can also be and is a body corporate. The formulation is a body corporate. What you're looking at is a state company, like, for instance, the Argyle International Airport company. And just as for completeness, having made the distinction, and I suspect you were saying that what we should have, the Port Authority, should not be a statutory body, but should be a company in which shares can be purchased by anybody who wants to purchase. And we had established long ago, if you look in the debates, on the original loan bill which came here, I pointed out that what we want to do is to set up the port, which you say you think is the best way, as a company. And we want to do that and a separate body dealing with the regulation of ports. And I had made the parallel point that the Argyle International Airport Company is a wholly owned state company, a body corporate. But you have other entities like the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority, which regulates civil aviation, and that the AIA company owns and manages the airport operations, but not the regulation of civil aviation. In the same way, you can have a regulatory body for the ports where you have a separate entity owning the port and managing it. But the current model in the SVG Port Authority Act. It's both owns the port, operates it, manages it, and regulates ports. I don't know if you're with me. I just gave the...
I'm very much with you, Honorable Prime Minister.
Good.
I
was trying to help.
No. No. How come Bronco? No. Madam Speaker, I'm perfectly aware of what I'm dealing with. It's a part of my professional expertise. It's part of my practice. It's part of my understanding. And I appreciate the distinction being made. What I'm satisfied, that has been answered, it's not a private company. The port is not a private company.
Absolutely.
And that's the point I'm making. And I'm recommending that it may be better that it becomes a private company. No, it's not a different point. I know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because from here on, we will be better positioned on this financial debt trap. And I'm raising my voice a little bit, which I don't want to raise, as we go forward. Because what is happening to our St. Vincent and the Grenadines now, as we are proceeding with all of these development matters, infrastructural importance as they are, is that we have to borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow. It's like what I said to you earlier, we're in this black tub and it's getting over our head. Gale, the hook in our gale is going deeper and deeper. If we had a private company, we have more exploratory financing possibilities, specifically for the establishment of private public sector partnerships. As it is now, for example, I do not think that the law would allow, in this configuration, for private interests to say, look, you have a port, I'm a principal importer of goods in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I have a supermarket, I'm quite prepared to take 10% ownership of the port for my $5 or $10 million. And the Bonadies, the Veras, the Graves, or whoever they are, and ease the debt burden on the housewives, the taxpayers.
But
allow me, please.
If you listen to the
because I know you're going to speak. In the speaking this evening, well, hold your powder.
Okay. All right.
Hold your powder. Because we're not alone here. Because a lot of port developments in and around the region have taken alternative approaches where the governments of the countries have the benefit of the port facilities, but not the debt of the port. Because they franchised it out. The private sector came and developed the port, and many cruise facilities are like that. Built by the private sector. But the infrastructure is enjoyed by the nation state. And this is important. It's important because we have to get a right fit to deal with the debt consequences that arise. Because while, and I'm getting to that, I may run out of time, I'm getting to that, while we have to be mindful on the one hand of the borrowings and the debt burdens, we also have to be aware that when it comes to infrastructural investments, specifically the construction of it, that it is a sector of the economy that is critical in its contributions to our gross domestic product. So we cannot try to say that we ain't getting into infrastructural things because it causes debt. And in the process of doing that, cut off our nose now, so we're not having a growing construction sector. So, and I think the minister understands what I'm saying. So we need to have both things going. We need to have, and therefore, to do that, we also have to get the financial mechanisms correct, which comes as a consequence of having the appropriate legal framework. And I'm saying in this case, the port will be better off whether sooner or later, becoming a private company, so that in the future, when it needs other enhancements and improvements, it's not a result now of the port going and taking out the cash at hand, or coming to government for a guarantee, which means taxpayers paying the debt, or impacting our debt to GDP ratio, but that they can turn to people who want to take risk by acquiring shares in the entity. That's what Major's been trying to say. And I think I've said it well, and the man outside can listen to me and understand what I'm saying. So, Madam Speaker, again, in my notes, and the Minister of Finance, in his presentation, preempted me in a proper way. We're talking about large amount of monies. Up to now, with a $600 million investment, this Parliament doesn't have a modicum of insight as to the performance, the projections of the port. We know now, we know some things now. That the current port, with assets of over $100 million, not a small amount of money, generates a profit of $1 million. It's not a lot of profit for $100 million investment. It's not. But maybe it can improve the profit by efficiency performances, which a modernization facilitates. But it's not an automatic transition. So the natural question arises is that I don't, and I answer in my own question, I don't have the same confidence that the Minister of Finance has, that the port can service a $40 million debt without impacting its cash flows to deal with several other things that a solvent company should be able to attend to. Better wages, for example, for its professional staff and all of its staff, comes to mind immediately. Then also, Madam Speaker, having addressed the question of how that will be addressed, we must put down some early markers. I spoke a minute ago about the fact that the current port makes $1 million on $100 million. And there's no guarantee that it'll make $6 million on $600 million. That's not how it works. That's not the linear equation that applies. But my recall, Madam Speaker, and there's some benefit in getting what you all call becoming elder statesmen early, or old age, or what you all want to call it. This constant war on people applying the experience and the heart to wisdom in carrying this country forward. I think I heard that in the operational exercise, ongoing exercise, especially in the sandbarging exercise to backfill the port and so on and so forth, that we saved $20 million. Am I correct, Mr. Minister? There was a savings of $20 million. There was a savings of $20 million, and we identified where the $20 million saved can be applied. You can't yesterday say you have $20 million that you don't need, and you're going to spend it in alternative areas, important and productive as they may be. But the very next day say, but I need the same $20 million or more. It's one or the other. And you can't say that, therefore, without coming to a conclusion that we may have been a little careless in our planning and in our money requirements. And where does a company that needs $40 million get $100 million to give to the government? You just got to give from them. What is that supposed to be? Ingratiation? You're giving what you don't have? You're giving the one hand, take back with the other hand? No. It doesn't square. It really doesn't square. Because the very money that they gave, anyhow, let me leave that alone. Madam Speaker, I want to address the deeper and more fundamental issues of these bond requests and bond financing. Bond financing on not just the government, but a lot of other things. Madam Speaker, if you go to the 2021 audit report, Madam Speaker, you would see that the government has been having fair bits of challenges, not just in the public debt, but in the way it has to manipulate the financial system to stay on keel. Page 79 of this 2021 order says, additional external loan from the International Development Association was the main contributor to this increase in public debt when compared to financial years 2020. The growth rate of public debt has accelerated over the last 3 financial years. It increased by 8.9%, 14.3%, and 18% in financial years 2019, 20, and 21, respectively. In other words, Madam Speaker, our debt has started taking on a bit of a sprint. Yes, the minister honestly warned us about this. In his report for this year, on page 78 of his report, he said, our existing large capital projects, most notably the acute care hospital and the modern cargo port, were always predicted to cause a temporary spike in our debt to GDP ratio that would then taper off to the 60% target by 2035. I don't share his optimism. I agree with him on the purpose, but I don't share his optimism, Madam Speaker. Because to get ahead of myself, Madam Speaker, what is in fact happening with the government that is providing guarantees? Oftentimes, through the issue of bonds, is that the government itself is getting into trouble. And you might ask, how come? By what conclusions, Honorable Member, do you make that statement? Well, Madam Speaker, if you look in the report, you'll see that the government has got to the stage where it has started using bonds to raise funds to pay off loans. For the man on the street, listen to me. It's simply this. You're taking a loan to pay a loan. You're digging a hole to fill a hole. You did it with NIS. You did it with VINLEC. You're doing it for national properties. And it's creating a whole web of confusion between the director of audit and the director and the accountant general, where consistently they have to be asking for explanation why this is so, why that is not so. And that's because the truth be told, with all the grandstanding, you don't have money. A lot of it is BS. Madam Speaker, let me give an example. Page 82 of the report by the Auditor General, speaking to domestic loans, which this will be one. An amount of $3 million received from loans from Petrocarib in 2018 was not included in as a debt in SmartStream and in the public debt statement, resulting in an understatement of the public debt. Further, there is no evidence to indicate that this loan was being serviced. And you can go back before that. On the subject matter of Petrocarib monies, which has remained for a long, long time, not properly accounted for. Here, we violated this house by spending monies without the legitimate authority of the parliament. Madam Speaker, 2163 of that same report says, loan receipts of $4 million was credited to domestic loan receipts in financial year 2020. However, the corresponding loan was not accounted for in SmartStream, nor was included in the SmartStream of public debt. This resulted in an understatement of the public debt by $4 million. Madam Speaker, the audit report, and I know there will be plausible explanations for these things, A statement has shown a balance of $11 million on a loan owed to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. However, it was noted that this loan is not being serviced by the government. You're not paying the debt. You're not paying the people you owe. Maybe you have a relationship that allows you to get away with it. Cost of service in public debt, Madam Speaker. And that's why I asked the question this morning, That's why I asked the questions. Because you're going to come in a month or 2 or 3 with the same 200 this, 200 that, 200 the other, which for the last 15 years show you don't get that money. It explains why even in the very ministry that's going to stand up and speak to me here tonight, Ministry of Urban Development, that in this very audit report, it shows that in a year when you should have had something like $50 million in capital programs, or 50-something million, you fell short by nearly $50 million. A lot of the money, and I don't know where the minister got this thing from, that we spend 97 cents on the dollar, 98 cents on the dollar. Lie, untruths. That's the parliamentary language. You're coming nowhere near the money voted by this parliament to keep the people's business.
Honourable member, you have about 5 minutes remaining.
I will not complain, Madam Speaker, but the message will go out there and they would understand what I'm talking about. Madam Speaker, the cost of service in public debt includes amortization, interest charges, and sinking fund contributions. According to the statement of detailed expenditure, a total of $237 million was expended for the servicing of domestic and external debts and sinking fund contributions. That's what the audit report says, 237. If you go to the budget for that year, for 2021, Madam Speaker, the financial summaries, you would see that the amount of debt that should have been paid, $74 million for interest payment, $175 for amortization, $22 million for sinking fund and others, exceeded the 238, which means you're not even paying all of your public debt. So don't be too excited about this notion that you name government and you can do what you like, where you like, how you like, as long as you like, even when you know it's coming to an end. Just cool it. In the last parliament, Madam Speaker, on the acute hospital, and I repeat it not to be boring, but that it should stick in our brain, that between 2005 and 2009, The cost to service debt was just over $491 million. Between 2016 to 2020, it cost over $1 billion to service the public debt. Between 2020 to 24, it was $1.4 billion to service debt. Where do you think that's coming from? You have to find the money somewhere to service the public debt. And it's now closer to $2 billion to service the public debt. You know, I'm sure it cannot be lost on the Honorable Minister. It cannot be lost on him. That here we have some extremely serious challenges to deal with. And this is not that we don't want to see the port, and things going to be the best in the West. Forget about that. You ain't going to be better than Barbados. You ain't going to be better than Trinidad. You ain't going to be better than Guyana. Don't even talk. Don't even think about it. I'm telling you no functionality. Carl Hooper. I know what you're talking about. We will have a much improved facility over where you are. But Madam Speaker, I have a colleague of mine who speaks, honorable member for the Northern Grenadines, to the fact that we are mortgaging the future of our children. Not my children, and maybe not my grandchildren because they don't live here or can't live here, because they are Leacock, even they're under different names and titles now. But it's all right. Madam Speaker, you know, Madam Speaker said exactly 3 minutes. Even if I smile, that's all right. The center says I could take his 45. Madam Speaker, you know, and I'm charging the Minister of Finance, we have to hold him to some serious manners, you know. When we raise the monies for the acute hospital, Madam Speaker, that $335 million or thereabout, you see, because we like to talk about one something US, it's 335. We gleefully said that, look, you know, we don't have to pay back anything for the first 10 years. But 10 years from now takes us to 2035, the very year when he said things should start to dive. That's when that 10-year will materialize, just like this bond for 10 years, same year. Just like the Saudi Arabian funds, that same year. And 40 years from now, when those young centers finally got around to having their children and their children, because that's 2 generations, 40 years. They will come and ask the grandmother, yes, you all will become grandmothers. Where were you when all of this happened? Because what's there? Mr. Minister of Finance, maybe I should ask before drumming the gong, how much interest would the 335 realize in 10 years from now? What interest rate do you think it will be? What do you think will be the interest rate? 5%? Because if it's 5%, which seems, and you all like these nice words of LIBOR and HIBOR and Jumbo and all this kind of thing. You know, it can't be 5. Because if it's 5, so it's going to be 3.35. So if it's 3.35 of 300 and something, that's about $120 million. Give or take. I still could do my mental arithmetic. I had it at 5, which would have been 200, and I may not be wrong. By the time you start to pay that $335 loan, it would have accumulated $200 million interest, or 130 or 140 by your estimation. So the loan service would not be on 335. It will be about on 470 and possibly $500 million. Starting 2035. Add to that the servicing of the Saudi loan. Add to that this bond issue. Add to that the other sets of loans that will come in 25, 6, 7, and 8. If you stay there, I don't believe you would. We will see. Because it's only because the same me and you, which ain't true, you know, but because the same me and you just get along. Why me dealing with this thing with the car run single and so on and so forth, and this idea we figure.
I didn't hear what you said.
I believe him. I believe you can't run a single.
I
do
I didn't
believe.
hear what you said.
Anyhow,
Well, them fellas,
That
they
is just
agree
about
with
your
us.
time,
I hear what you
Honorable
said.
Madam
Member.
Speaker,
Yes.
I come to the conclusion of this debate. I had some more detailed matters I want to address.
You sup-
And between my time up.
you supporting the resolution?
Between a rock.
You supporting the resolution?
Just a moment. Just a moment, Honorable Member.
This $40 million, you know,
You
being with
supporting
rest
the
of my
resolution?
conscience. Personally. Eh? On this? No, I ain't supporting you, man. Maybe my party would. I don't know. I didn't say what I'll vote or what I'll not vote.
All right.
I'll be guided.
I'll
be
put you to
guided.
the test.
But my own conscience tells me there comes a time
I'll put you to the test.
where you have to. No, don't tell me no equipment for the port. The port needs to get its equipment to make it functional, operational, but we do not need to continue indefinitely borrowing. But to introduce, don't tell me the port anything. We lost a whole bank of time because it wasn't the government who borrowed. All the statutory operation borrowed. Then they end up borrowing $100 million and sell it for 30 to save a bank. You've been here before. Stop the nonsense. Madam Speaker, I'm much obliged to speak about this. I'm worried about where our financial challenges and management or mismanagement is leading us. And I leave the conclusion of this perhaps to wise heads than myself. Much obliged, Madam Speaker.
Yes, for the debate. For the debate, I recognize the Honorable Minister of Seaports. Urban Development. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to add my voice to the debate on this resolution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the modern port in Kingston is something that I have spoke about on multiple occasions. I think about a year ago, or just over a year ago, when I would have joined the government, I would have spoken about the port being at 50% at the time. I've spoken about the progress of the port. I've spoken about it being adding to our resilience, Madam Speaker. And I'm once again standing to speak or lend support to the port again today and this new modern port. Madam Speaker, it's no secret that the port in Kingstown is the second largest capital project ever undertaken in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Madam Speaker, it is second to the Argyle International Airport, something that this side of the house, this government is very proud of, Madam Speaker. And this project is another one that we're going to be extremely proud of, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this project, once again, is another step. It's another major project, a major component in our conquest to develop, Madam Speaker, a modern, competitive, many-sided, post-colonial economy, Madam Speaker. One that is not national, one that is not only national, Madam Speaker, but is regional and international/global, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this port is a vital component to and for our development as a country. And we cannot not state that or understate that or take that point lightly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, last July would have marked the 60th anniversary of the Kingstown Port. It's 60 years old, it's crumbling, it's falling apart, Madam Speaker. The passage of Hurricane Beryl showed us how vulnerable we were, and how vulnerable we are to climatic events and climate change, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the port at Camden Park, although it's young, it was developed in the 1990s, but it's still inadequate and cannot accommodate the size or the types of ships that we have presently, Madam Speaker. Similar things can be said to the cruise ship boat, which at some occasions cannot accommodate more than one cruise ships, depending on the size, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, we are building, we are growing, and we are making excellent strides towards developing this modern economy that we will be proud of. Madam Speaker, I must pause here to commend the government, this side of the House, Madam Speaker, for the vision, the foresight to even develop the port and to take the bold steps to plan and develop and even execute a project like the port. Madam Speaker, the port is preparing to take us beyond the 21st century, and that is something that we must clap for, we must commend, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we can talk about how we have gotten to this point in terms of the resolution. It was not that we woke up or the members and staff of the Port Authority woke up and said, 40 million sounds like a nice round number. Let's go with that. But Madam Speaker, it was a process that was followed. It was a process that included consultants and reviews by various organizations, including the OAS and CDB, Madam Speaker. They would have reviewed over and over what we need from the port and also the financials of the port, Madam Speaker. And these financials assessments and the assessors would have told us that the Port Authority is in the position to service a loan of this amount, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, within the feasibility process or the feasibility studies done under this project, it was determined that the port will need an upgrading equipment, Madam Speaker. And the upgrading equipment is required to improve, 1, port efficiency, 2, to reduce equipment maintenance costs, and 3, to contribute to the sustainability of our port, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to stress here that this amount, this $40 million raised within the resolution, this is not an additional request for financing for the port modernization project, Madam Speaker, but the authorization of borrowing funds that were already budgeted for, Madam Speaker, within the project. Madam Speaker, in terms of the equipment,
Thank you. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister said that this loan was already budgeted for, and I want to be absolutely clear whether this is funding that is going to be additional borrowing or whether it was in fact budgeted, because I didn't hear the minister when he presented it say it was already monies that we had approved before.
Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm sure that the Minister of Finance did mention that, and he will, or he should signal that he did mention it, Madam Speaker, but that is the purpose of the loan. If you, of the $40 million, Madam Speaker, it's actually within.
Well, the minister can clarify it, he's there.
It's not in the budget.
Thank you.
She's correct with what Mr. Minister.
Madam Speaker, in continuing.
Go ahead, Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so the procurement of these modern equipment, they have certain benefits I've mentioned before. But I want to talk about specific benefits of these equipment and the type of equipment that is being purchased by the port, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is hoped that these equipment would lower the emissions related to operating a port. As you can appreciate, Madam Speaker, more and more now in this modern time, emissions and greenhouse emissions and the cleanness or the greenness of a port is being mapped against the success of a port. And this equipment should go a long way in doing that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member from Central Kingston, he highlighted several points. He talked about the fact that that we have to consider security, IT infrastructure, and these might come up as additional costs for developing a port. I would like to assure the member that the IT and the security infrastructure are part of the existing contract that we have now with ACON, so they will be there. The security fence with intrusion detection, part of that contract as well. The building of monitoring systems that are requisite for the alarms and other ports, that's included as well. Madam Speaker, in some aspects, we will be building the security of this port. I know it would have been mentioned in previous debates about the fact and the scanners that are being used, the pallet scanners that were invested by the Port Authority and are currently being used. Madam Speaker, within the equipment list listed, the Honorable Minister of Finance did talk about a pallet scan and about it arriving in early May. Madam Speaker, that one piece of equipment will improve the security of our ports. It will make our streets safer. So we are investing in a safer society through these numbers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, other things that have been stated this evening about it. The Honorable Member from Central Kingston spoke about the fact that he hasn't been to visit the port site. I'm sorry that you haven't been given the opportunity yet to visit, but I will surely try to facilitate a visit for you. But, Madam Speaker, I would like to stress I would like to commend API, Madam Speaker, for the excellent work that they have been doing in covering the port project. Madam Speaker, we have weekly updates about the progress of the port. I think we have members of staff at the port have all been interviewed talking about their stories. We have seen young members of staff who came on to work at the port as interns and how they have grown and how they have been able to grow professionally and personally through the development of the port and working on the port project, Madam Speaker. We have all seen those. So I would like once again to commend API and encourage the Honorable Member to go and seek these videos if he needs some catching up on the work that's being done at the port, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in terms of the whole issue of revenue, the equipment that is being purchased, Madam Speaker, it has the potential to improve the revenue earning capacity of the Port Authority. Madam Speaker, currently, there are several containers, including geese, that are not handled by the Port Authority, Madam Speaker. We have also heard the Minister of Finance would have indicated the length of time it takes to remove lumber, cement, and heavy materials for construction, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we would now be able to handle these bulk cargo, Madam Speaker, and it would also provide a source of revenue, Madam Speaker. So that is excellent news in terms of the port and its capacity, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member for Central Kingston would have also questioned whether or not the port has, or whether or not the HR system and computer system would be built into the port. Madam Speaker, luckily for us, we are moving port operations to a new port. The current port operations does include an HR system that is up to date. We have an auditing system in place already, Madam Speaker. We also have cargo handling systems, but we are in the process of updating those, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Port Authority has taken its responsibility to educate and train its staff seriously, Madam Speaker. Over the past years, they have invested more and more in the training and education of staff, Madam Speaker, who are now in the position and who are now more equipped, Madam Speaker, to handle these new equipment and what is expected of them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and additionally, I would also like to say that we at the port, they have been the purchasing of equipment for several years to help with the modernization of the port. Madam Speaker, those equipment will also be transferred to this new port, and that is also savings that we can say we have basically accumulated, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about what is currently the ongoing works that are being done at the port, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, work on the port commenced on May 12, 2022, after the signing of a supervision contract on May 1st of the same year, 2022. Madam Speaker, at the end of September, we are currently at 71% completion, Madam Speaker, with 80% of the time passed. And if you want that broken down in terms of the preliminaries, Madam Speaker, we are at 99% completed. Sewer line relocation, 100%. Road works, 6%. Marine and civil works, 80% completed, Madam Speaker. Buildings, warehouse, workshops, 50%. Operational facilities, gates, fencing, landscaping, we have yet to start. But Madam Speaker, just looking at the landscape of Kingstown and just the way how it's laid out, we are definitely seeing that the port project is well on its way and steadily approaching the finish line, Madam Speaker, which is scheduled for May 2024, Madam Speaker. May 2025, sorry. Madam Speaker, I would like to highlight some of the work that we will be seeing happening at the port within the month of October. It is our Independence Month, and this is more or less one of the jewels or gems within our treasure chest, Madam Speaker. So we are expecting the completion of the coping beam on the quay wall, the installation of the portyard pavement, sub-base aggregates, installation of pavement cement treated base layer, installation of terminal utilities. This includes manholes, oil water separator, drainage pipes, electrical duct banks, sewage pipes, fire water pipes, slot drains, and potable pipes. And we expect at the end of October that these would be near 80% completion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there will be continued work on the container freight station, including the building, including the roof installation, masonry work, mechanical and electrical and plumbing works, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the administrative building, there will be ongoing construction there. We will then be able to see the final exterior cladding, Madam Speaker, which holds national significance since the inspiration for the cladding was our national parrot, Madam Speaker. The erection of steel frame for the garage buildings in addition to casting of foundation, piles, caps. And Madam Speaker, we will see substantial work being done on the Vinlex substation, which is within the site, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me to think that we got so far without the help of others. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank publicly once again the persons who would have contributed to this project or organizations, international organizations and associations, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in particular, I would like to commend the UK SIF and thank them for the financing made available that made this project a reality, or that is making this project a reality. The same goes towards CDB, Taiwan, ROC, and even our local components and the local government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the coming months, as the port draws towards its completion, we will continue to see the transformation of Kingstown, Madam Speaker. And that transformation of Kingstown would lead or would give way to what has been stated. The Honorable Prime Minister basically told us about his vision and the vision to expand Kingstown and what will be the future of Kingstown, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the development and the opening of this port will lead to the freeing up of lands at the current port, Madam Speaker, where we would be able to develop a service-based economy that is in keeping with our future, Madam Speaker. And that brings me back to the fact that this port, Madam Speaker, is just a stepping stone towards our development of a modern, competitive, and post-colonial society, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before sitting, I would like to dispel the notion about future generations, Madam Speaker. Generally now we hear the talk. No, I'm talking about the debt that will be given to future generations, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, while the opposition focuses on debt, we focus on the other side of the coin, on this side of the house, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what we are providing for the future generations of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a resilient port, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the days since the passage of Hurricane Beryl, it has not been easy on the members of staff within the Ministry of Urban Development, nor those working within the Port Authority, nor those on the port project, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, especially for those in the Port Authority, it has been a balancing act, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am grateful, as I stated before, and I would like to commend this side of the House, Madam Speaker, for the foresight to develop this port. Because I don't know where we would have been without this port. Similarly to the hospital, Madam Speaker, they all hold great benefits towards our people, and we must highlight those benefits, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
For the debate, so I recognize the Honourable Member for West Kingstown.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to add my voice to this debate. And I come to this discussion, Madam Speaker, quite cognizant of the fact that I am the only person in the Parliament with a background in engineering. And quite cognizant of the fact that I am the only person, I am the only person in the Parliament with experience with management in a statutory body. And I say that, Madam Speaker, with all humility, but simply to point to my colleagues that what I am about to say is fundamentally very serious. Madam Speaker, I start with the comments by the Honorable Minister of Finance about the godsend nature of the project. And I want to remind him that when the existing main port in Kingston was built, it was built at a time when ships were completely different, loading was completely different. And like all projects, it required a level of maintenance. But we know, Madam Speaker, that the track record of this government with respect to maintenance of structures is abominable, and I'm being kind. Whether it be schools, roads, public buildings, ports, the people of the Grenadines know how many years it takes to repair the very many ports that are so critical for their survival in the Grenadines. But specifically to the main port in Kingston, Madam Speaker, several years ago, attempts were made to secure the port by reducing the corrosion of the steel. And the methodology used was that of encasing the piles that were driven on which the port was supported. Subsequently, some of these encasings cracked and they were left for water, seawater, to destroy the steel further. One only has to go a little bit down the road to Otley Hall, Madam Speaker, to see the abandonment of the dry dock, very expensive, world-class dry dock that was built for the maintenance of ships at Otley Hall. And like, Speaker, the port in Kingston had a provision for using what is referred to as cathodic protection. That is to say, by using sacrificial pole with electricity, so that the structure you want to remain intact will remain and you will allow something else to be eaten away. It is used, Madam Speaker, quite commonly in engineering, even in the construction of steel pipes for protection, because we know how quickly steel can erode in certain environments. But the Port Kingston, Madam Speaker, has seen no maintenance for very many years. Hence, it has come to the point where a decision had to be taken to abandon it in the main, because a significant component of it, like Otley Hall, is left to be completely deteriorated. Madam Speaker, I listened very carefully to the presentation of the Honorable Minister of Finance. And Madam Speaker, let me just say, sometimes I come to this Parliament and I wonder whether those who are in power, as they like to say, feel that they are God-given to do as they like, when they like. To ask me to come to this Parliament to rubber stamp a resolution, and for the very first time presenting a trickle of information on what the resolution is about. We come here to learn of the mechanisms being used, what is being bought, what is being used for. We come here to hear about the kinds of equipment. And we come here to hear all kinds of things. But like the discussion on the new hospital, I didn't hear anything about any tendering process for the selection of these equipment. You hear they have a figure of $50 million. Did you hear anything about how it came about. Madam Speaker, the last time I spoke on this thing, I was traduced in my absence, and I wasn't allowed to correct the falsehoods that the Minister of Finance stated with respect to the World Bank project, the OECS Solid Waste Management project. But God doesn't sleep, You see, Madam Speaker, he quoted from some World Bank report. I said that the OECS Solid Waste Management project was one of the finest projects executed in the region. I said that the St. Vincent component got excellent ratings. Madam Speaker, but if you compare the building of a hospital to the OECS Solid Waste Management project, you will see how silly that is. The two projects are extremely different. The OECS Solid Waste Management project is an extremely complicated project. First of all, it encompassed the OECS countries, funded by 5 or 6 different institutions. It had a team that they tried to set up in St. Lucia to oversee the project in the various islands that only ended up being more problematic. And Madam Speaker, let me quote for you, for the Honorable Minister, from a document from the World Bank Independent Evaluation Group. An independent evaluation done by Deepa Chakrapani and Miley
Rise on a
Libman.
point of order. Just a moment, Honorable Member for West Kingstown. Honorable Member.
My point of order is that the honorable member is not debating the resolution and is introducing matters that are not relevant to the resolution. And I think we've given considerable latitude. But now we're going into an extended discussion of the OECS Solid Waste project. If it is relevant, I would appreciate if he gives me the point of contact so that I can follow him.
Very
I'm
well.
obliged.
Yes, I take your point of order, Honorable Member. If we can make the nexus between the point that you're making and the relevance to the debate.
Madam Speaker, I will in a minute show you the connection between what I'm doing here and this current debate. And I require that you permit me to continue. You see, Madam Speaker, we got the impression from the Honorable Minister that World Bank financing is one of the worst kind. I quote from page 17 of this report. Efficient use of resources. The project took considerably more time and marginally more money than planned. It was estimated to cost 50.5 million, but that actually cost 54 million, due largely to the increased cost for landfill construction. The project closing date was extended to December 2000, from 2000 to 2003. Madam Speaker, what I am saying, you come to this parliament to borrow money for the hospital at Annisvale, for which you didn't do any tendering. You come to this parliament today to buy equipment for a port under construction to the tune of $50 million. You provide little information that is relevant to the procedures involved in arriving at the $50 million. And you're asking me and my colleagues to support the expenditure, the borrowing of this amount of money. Madam Speaker, Here are some questions that any objective Vincentian would ask. Who are the consultants that advise the Port Authority on the purchase of these equipments? What exactly is their role? How were the equipment selected? What arrangements are in place for the maintenance of these equipments? Are there any local persons trained to operate properly and maintain this equipment? Or do we have to wait for someone to fly in to change a bearing? You see, Madam Speaker, these are the kinds of questions that people who love their country will ask. Because I can tell you, Madam Speaker, even in the purchase of the equipment for solid waste management, the requirements were to have people look at what is available on the market, to see what is most appropriate for our neck of the woods, and to make sure that the equipment will give us proper service. You see, Madam Speaker, everyone knows that in these days, the technology changes rapidly. There's regular improvement. But that even as you select at a point in time, you have to be cognizant of the trends and make sure that you're catering for equipment that can serve you for the time you wish to get back your funds. Madam Speaker, I am really trying to make sense out of the length of time the Honorable Minister took to explain how the equipment has to be here before a particular date, and how they knew about this $50 million like it fell out of the sky, without any explanation whatsoever as to whether, in fact, there was a tender process, whether the consultants advise on the type of equipment that is necessary. How are we to come to any conclusion that this is the best use of our funds? And are we supposed to just sit back and say, yeah, man, the minister don't know what you do. We must take his word for that. I am not for a moment, Madam Speaker, trying to cast aspersion on the project team that is responsible for building the port. But again, I heard the Minister of Finance tell this Parliament that that project has nothing to do with this equipment. So I am to believe that the management of the Port Authority has all the skills and talent and expertise to determine which equipment is best for St. Vincent and who they must go and buy it from. So they go like you go to Walmart or you go to Trinidad at the store and you pick up your groceries and you go to the teller and you say, I need this amount of money to pay for it. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, that's unacceptable behavior in any civilized society. $50 million. Were they picked up off the shelf, this equipment? Were they? Were they handpicked by somebody who's getting a cutback? Could it be that? If not, tell us how this equipment was selected. Why do I have to ask you to tell me that? Why wouldn't the country know what is the procedure used for the selection of this kind of equipment and how you came to the costing of $50 million? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. And I am not to ask you for that. You have a responsibility to this country to let it be known. It's not the ULP's money. It is not. It's the people's money. But Madam Speaker, these things really annoy me because we come here time after time and treat the parliament as though it is their Morby shop. So they can do what they want and ram things down your throat. And if you don't support it, they want to tell you, say you don't want the Porter bill. We on this side have supported all of the efforts to construct the port. We have said so many times that you have not done enough to maintain the current port. And I say it again here today, that had you done the work on the port, you may not have had to be expending this amount of money now. But that is water under the bridge because you destroyed the port, just like you destroyed Otley Hall. And you caused us to be in this position. So we have no choice but to spend money. We have no choice. So, Madam Speaker, I said I'm not going to be long, The Port Authority is in a position to deal with the equipment as a statutory body ought to. And I find it difficult to understand why, as a parliamentarian, I am being asked to give my blessing to pig in a bag. There is nothing in the presentation of the Minister of Finance on this motion that gives me any element of belief that a procedure was followed that is requisite for the expenditure of $50 million of the people of this country. And as a parliament, we owe it to future generations to make sure that we proceed according to reason and according to law. $50 million is not pennies in a poor country like ours. The equipment for the port is not something that you buy every Monday morning or every year. It requires careful scrutiny and it requires expert analysis to make sure that we are having the best. If it were done, why is it not disclosed? Why is it not disclosed? What are you hiding? You're not talking to infants. You're not talking to. You can't fool anybody. Anybody who underwent a proper procedure would be happy to lay it in this parliament. Anybody who did it. But you come in here, you give me no information whatsoever before. All I see at the last minute, a resolution. And then you come in here and mumbling off something unrelated. Taking so much time with unrelated matter. And I'm waiting to hear, how did they arrive at $50 million? And not a word. And then telling me, I must take pig in bag. Madam Speaker, I simply cannot and will not support this motion.
Further debate? Further debate? Further debate? Further debate? Further debate? No? Oh, yes, I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, this is a very straightforward resolution. It is necessary and desirable for the Port Authority to raise $40 million. They themselves would be servicing the debt. And under the Port Authority Act, what is being done by the port and what is being done by the Parliament and the Cabinet, it is all stated in the Act, as outlined by the Honorable Minister of Finance. The Honorable Minister of Finance, from the very beginning when this matter first came, and I myself spoke about it, maybe they were short memories, that there were consultants, not only in relation to the port, but also in relation to the equipment, and there was an internal process of procurement. In fact, there was a long process. The port is being built. It's going to be opened in May. And the opposition in its usual obstructionist way, in the way it sought at every turn to obstruct the construction of the Argyle International Airport, it is doing again with this project. The honorable member for West Kingston perhaps has amnesia. He said that he was the representative for West Kingston, and no equipment, nothing can come there. He will stand in its way. He will stop it. Dead in the water. He also said,
You don't have amnesia. You local. Have to be.
well, you all said that I was local.
Always have to
You all
Madam
said that
Speaker,
I was. I'm on my
leader of
feet.
the
I'm on my
government
feet.
is telling
You're
the
not
truth.
going to
Just a
bully.
moment.
I move on a
You are
point
full of
order.
bile and anger.
moment.
Just relax a bit now
Just
and
a
listen.
moment. Just
I
a
listen
moment.
to you quietly.
Honorable Prime Minister.
You just sit
the member
down
has-
and listen now.
The member has risen on a point of order. Please state your point of order, Honorable Member.
Yes, Madam Speaker, that single has some people losing their mind.
Please state your
I
point of-
have
please state your
never
point
said
of order.
anything as is being attributed to me by the leader of government business. He is totally misrepresenting me. And if he can't learn to run, he must learn to remember.
I don't know how to run, but I could score sixes though.
Madam Speaker, I wish that it be withdrawn.
It will not be withdrawn because I'm speaking the truth. I heard you. I heard you. Publicly you said
You're
it.
hearing a lot of things these days.
I heard you. Publicly you said
You're
it.
hearing a lot of things these days. It's quite clear. You're hearing a lot of things. I can't help you with that.
Shout and
I
scream.
can't help you with
Shout
what
and
you're
scream.
hearing.
Shout and scream. You're not
Honorable
going to get
members.
me off my wicket today.
Yes. Just a moment.
You're hearing a lot of things.
Madam Speaker, I
Minister.
want to quote him. I want to quote him.
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister.
Published in the Searchlight newspaper contemporaneously. Listen to me, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Listen to me, ULP. The people of West Kingston have given me the authority to speak on their behalf. If you do not dialogue with me, and if you do not make all the information available to me on that project will be dead. And there are other things too.
Yes.
I tell you have amnesia. I tell you have amnesia.
Madam
Very well.
Speaker, again,
Your mic is on.
yes, again, the Honorable Prime Minister is attributing statements to me that are untrue. I have never promised to block any construction. The reference just quoted was in relation to moving the people from Rose Place, which is not associated with the construction of this project. It is not amnesia you have.
Very
It's
well.
not amnesia you have. It's something else.
Very well. Yes.
It's okay. I can understand, when a man trying to be a minister of government for nearly quarter century.
That statement to be withdrawn.
I will not withdraw it because I spoke the truth. And I heard you said both things. You said that you will stop the project, and you also said, let them come and say the building houses over West Kingston. I want to have down in West Kingston a building going up with apartments. That is what I want. And nobody will be going over to Lomans. And I said to you then, I said to the whole country, well, he has a good house up in Sharps. When I give the people the keys to go over Lomans, you will see what will happen. And the people went for the keys over Lomans.
Honorable members.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I moved on a point of order. I'm
Yes.
waiting for you to rule.
Yes, I do believe, Honorable Member, that you indicated that certain things that were initially said, you didn't say them. I took that to mean that you didn't say them verbatim.
I didn't say anything like that.
Very well. Subsequent thereto, there was something that was quoted as per what you would have said.
No,
I
Madam
haven't.
No, Madam Speaker. Madam
Yes.
Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister referred to me saying I would block equipment, and so I have
you
never
also-
said
Honorable
any-
Member,
you said-
Madam Speaker,
Honorable
those
Member,
are very specific words.
Honorable Member, you are not allowing me to conclude so that I can properly rule on the matter. I am indicating that you raised the point of order, making some comments that you did not say what the Prime Minister initially said. Okay? On that point, I am going to take your point of order. However, subsequent thereto, there was something that was quoted as your words. Doesn't matter if it is from a newspaper. The words were quoted, and you have subsequently said they were in a particular context. Yes? Very well. So in that respect, I am satisfied. I am satisfied, Honorable Member, because you haven't disputed that the words were said. You're just saying in a different context. Very well.
No, those are completely
So you did not say those words
Those
that
are
are
completely
quoted?
different words.
You didn't say the words that were
I am very
quoted?
adamant that I've never said those words.
You never said the words that were quoted?
No, not ever. Not ever.
And Madam Speaker, I heard him say them.
Yeah, you're hearing a lot.
I heard him.
You're hearing a lot of things after.
I heard him.
After Shadow launch, you hear a lot of things. All now, so you're hearing things.
Honorable members, what I will direct is in the interest of time.
Notice what you're talking to me about. Shallow. I don't deal with shallow things,
Honorable members,
Long time.
Honorable Prime Minister, this is my position on the matter. You've made a particular quote. The Honorable Member says that he didn't say it. I don't have sufficient evidence, yea or nay. I will then have to just rule that we proceed.
I'm obliged, Madam
Rule that we
Speaker.
proceed. I
I'm
will
obliged,
now, I
Madam
will now
Speaker.
continue your time.
Madam Speaker, we have a simple, I hope I know you'll be taking the time, Madam Speaker. I'm obliged, Madam Speaker. Now, let us back up a little bit about this port. In 2009, nearly a year after we started the physical works on the Argyle International Airport, upon a proper review, Madam Speaker, a review which went back to the time when they put in the container port down at Camden Park was established. It was clear to the government of the day then that the port, through wear and tear, had deteriorated and it was on its last legs. And as a result of the small size of the Camden Park port, my government put on the agenda the issue of building a modern container port. There were several studies. And we reached a particular denouement after all the studies by all the consultants. We went to the Caribbean Development Bank for money. I must say, Madam Speaker, the number of studies over the years caused the extent of the cost of the port to rise because prices increase. We went to the CDB. The CDB loaned us $110 million US. The largest single loan that they have approved for any project in their 50 years of existence up to that point in time. That is the thoroughness with which the port was studied. Madam Speaker, the British government, David Cameron, established a fund called the United Kingdom CIF. It's the Caribbean Infrastructure Fund. And we asked for our money to go to the port. They said it can go to the port or any other place which we approve of. The money was lodged at the Caribbean Development Bank. Through all the changes, Madam Speaker, with COVID and SOFRE, and there are persons inside of the government, I'm talking about in state administration, said we are strapped for resources with these emergencies. There's this money there. I say, I want us to leave it there because this port is so vital to the development of a modern competitive economy. Let us not play games with this money which is put down there. We'll find money elsewhere to do other things in relation to COVID and the volcanic eruptions. And then we needed $62 million more, and we went to the Republic of China, a bank supported by the government of Taiwan, to borrow the $62 million, a soft loan. Always part of the plan is that the Port Authority will pay for the equipment, will raise the money for the equipment. They had some money, but they will raise other monies for the equipment. All that. Indeed, as the Honorable Minister of Finance has said, it was a condition of the CDB loan that the Port Authority put some skin in the game. A consultant from the OAS, Madam Speaker, also said we must change the governance arrangements, alter the arrangements, turn it into a state-owned company, a private under the Companies Act so you can sell shares later, and have a regulatory authority for the ports. That's what the Honorable Member for Central Kingston has come around to say that's the best approach, the best model. And that was their ab initio from the very beginning. If we did not commence this project as early as 2009, we would not have been able to build this port because there is a long, long gestation period in these large projects. And I will not forget the behavior of the NDP in relation to the Argyle International Airport. Every big project that we bring forward, everything which is transformative, everything which is going to change a amended colonial economy to something which is modern, competitive, many-sided. They went against it. They went against the education revolution, which is the foundation for the modern economy. They went against the modern medical, because once you do education, you have to do health and other human resource things. They were against that. They were against the cricket facility in 2007 and the expansion last year into this year. They opposed it, where we played the World Cup. All of those things they opposed. They opposed, imagine they opposed the Rabaka Bridge. All of these things they opposed. And there's a viciousness, a nastiness about the NDP, which the people in this country will not tolerate. Oh, when we were doing the airport, what did they say over there? I'm a crazy man, that I must go. They will make an appointment for me with Dr. Debnat, the psychiatrist, because I'm a madman, that I think I could build an airport out there. Nobody ever built it for 50 years. Who tell you can build it? That was their mantra. They said, it's very interesting. I went, Madam Speaker, to the CDB. I went to the World Bank. I went to the European Investment Bank. I went to the European Union. I went to the governments of the USA, Canada, Britain, and all of them said, no, we don't see how you can do this thing. They say you have an airport in Barbados, one in St. Lucia, you can make some connectivity. In other words, we must remain a backwater. We must not alter the nature of our economy. We must just be hewers of wood and drawers of water based on an economy established in 1763 by the colonial British government. And we say no. And it is that transformative vision which the people have bought into while we are here for a quarter century. And why they will return us again for a 6th consecutive term. And Madam Speaker, I will ask before at the end of the debate on this, to put this matter to a division. Let's all vote. I want to see if they are going to vote individually against the Port Authority wanting to borrow $40 million. The Minister of Finance outlined the cost of all the equipment. In fact, he also said there was a tender for these matters, and there for the other matters, there will be a tender. He said that. He did not go through and spell out line by line. But he says he'll do it when he's winding up. Plantation, 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 plantation. My four parents were brought here as indentured servants, and we lived on the plantations as indentured servants, you know. My father left school at class 3 in the primary school to go on Droga route on Montreal Estate. I come from the bowels of the people, you know. Don't talk to me about those things about plantation. When fellas cozying up to imperialism,
It's nice stand by anything I say. Always.
Madam Speaker,
Proudly.
Madam Speaker, the same way when we are doing the airport at every stage of the game, they even accuse me of corruption, not accounting for the money when I said the accounts are at SIPO. They say, no, they don't want it at SIPO. Bring it here in the parliament. I say, just got to pay 50 cents for it. They don't want to do that. Full account of the $750 million. They carry out one of the nastiest campaigns. Accuse me of all sorts of things. Criminal misconduct including. They want to derail the comrade. But here I am standing. And you over there. And you will remain there. You will remain there. Because the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines understand who is on their side. You have a coalition over there of ambitious electoral elites. You all don't even have a common philosophy. You all don't even have a common idea as to how to proceed. You know, all you all hungry and thirsty for is power. You think I forget?
Honorable member.
The Prime Minister is free to rant and rave and to have his political
I'm not ranting and raving.
conversation. But there are more than one way this evening that Madam Speaker, in which his comments represents a misrepresentation of my contribution on the Port Bill and what I said here this evening. And to go on to cast aspersions on people's character, to begin to label one as imperialist and obsessed with power and so on and so forth is not becoming, Madam Speaker. Let me finish, please, Honorable Prime Minister.
Is a point of order, this is a speech.
Yeah, that you're being misrepresented and you're being, I don't want to say rude, Madam Speaker. But the fact of the matter, Madam Speaker, in my presentation, I expressly outlined the ways in which we can put the investment into the port.
Madam Speaker, is this another speech?
Man, what happened? The parliament.
Madam Speaker,
Honorable
he
members.
raises a point of order.
Yes.
I'm saying that you have been misrepresenting us and you have proceeded now to be insultive. And I've been listening to you and I've been patient and I've been allowing you to go on. But I will not, Honorable Prime Minister, be insulted
right.
by you. I will defend myself and my integrity. Because you, coming from wherever you come from, is your choice. But I too can respect where I have come from.
Absolutely.
And I have
agree
no
with that.
reason to. You know, my father would have turned 100 last Sunday, the 13th.
He
And
said,
he has done enough for me to be here to stand on my feet.
he said he's not on my plantation.
I'm not dealing with, I'm dealing with the disrespect and the discord.
No.
Please,
So,
please,
I'm a
please,
plantation
please
owner.
desist, Mr.
All
President.
right.
Otherwise, I will
I'm a plantation
defend.
owner.
Otherwise, I will defend my integrity to a hilt if you continue to do that.
Honorable members.
Well, you know, Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member for Central Kingston said there is no, he doesn't know a lot of things about this project. You don't know where the money gone. Then he said, well, I ain't gonna go there. Well, anybody listening to that is an imputation of corruption. And then your colleague, wait now, I'm on my feet, please.
I'm on my feet too.
Just a moment.
But now every time I say two sentences,
Well, you're not going to lie your way
you
through
are
the
the member
parliament.
for Central
Just
West
nobody here is
Kingston
afraid of
Council.
funerals.
Honorable members.
Nobody.
Honorable members.
Absolutely nobody. You won't hear no more than
Honorable
anyone else.
members.
I
Just
know
a
that.
moment, please.
I know that.
You understand?
I know that.
So
Just
stop
a
being so antsy.
I know that.
You understand?
Honorable members.
No one is afraid of you.
I'm not afraid of you either.
Honorable members, please. Honorable members.
Madam Speaker, the member for West Kingston said that there was corruption. He said so.
Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister is gross untruth. If his memory is gone,
My
Just a
memory ain't
moment.
gone.
Madam Speaker,
You don't remember what you just said?
I asked a question. I accuse no one. I asked a question and I accuse no one. I'm asking if they did not provide the information.
Yes.
Is it that people are getting? That's I asked the question.
Yes, you
and it's for
asked the
them.
question.
I have accused no one.
Very well.
Madam
well.
Speaker, rhetorical language. Is there anybody who getting kickback? After you say the framework, we are talking to children, infantiles?
So you know there is then.
Huh?
Well, if you know, you tell us that.
I didn't say there is. Look at the preposterous foolishness
No,
you're
but perhaps
talking
you know-
about.
Honorable
Look at the
members.
foolishness you're talking.
And perhaps that is why it's bothering you because you know the people getting kickback. But I asked
I
you,
never said that.
and you getting antsy over it.
Where did I say
There
that?
must be some truth in what
Where
I
did
said.
I say that? Where did I say that?
Honorable members.
You know, you have so much anger and bile in
Honorable
you.
members. We must be really careful. Honorable members, I am going to caution members that as we are here debating, and there are certain privileges, yes, we must also be very mindful of the language used and what can be interpreted as imputing improper motives. Again, I am just issuing a caution. Let us, I beg your pardon, to all members, honorable member. Because I didn't single out a single soul here. I said I am giving a caution. We have much to debate, I believe, and I am going to ask the Honorable Prime Minister if he can please continue.
Thank you very much, Madam.
I will restart your time.
Madam Speaker, when I heard how they're speaking, and in particular, the member for West Kingston, and I said that hungry and thirsty for power, those are the words which he used against the honorable member for Central Kingston when he was campaigning for the leadership of the party, when the current incumbent of the leader of the NDP was also running. I heard him. He was on Nice Radio. He said Sinclair Leacock is hungry and thirsty for power and he will never support him to lead the party.
Yes.
He said that. I didn't want to say these things, but when you begin to try to abuse.
Okay. Honorable. Okay.
How you don't get up and deny that? How you don't get up and deny that? I get up and deny that one.
Honorable members, we have a debate. We have a debate to conclude and other matters to take care of during this meeting of the House.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister, please
Madam-
proceed.
Madam Speaker,
Sorry.
the Honourable Member for Central Kingston said that he would wish to be able to go onto the site and see what is happening. And I said to him, All he has to do, if he says to me that he wants to go on the site, I will have Laura Anthony Brown and Linsky Douglas, who are our two main persons there, to give you a tour along with Akon. There is no problem there. Absolutely no problem. I don't have to accompany you. But you can go there with whichever entourage you want to go. I give you that assurance on the floor of the House, because you so indicated that. I know you were going pretty well until you diverted, you had exhausted what you were talking about the port, and then began to talk about the report of the Director of Audit on the issue of debt generally. I don't want to get involved in a debate, and that the Minister of Finance earlier had indicated in an answer to a question from the member for East Kingston as to the objective reasons for the increase in the debt, including, of course, the big transformative projects, and critically, the extent of the climate change-related disasters and COVID and the volcanic eruptions. It's the first time I see a man run away. Yeah? Where you gone? I ain't finished. No. Madam Speaker, we were told by the opposition that the Argyle International Airport, the debt will be a millstone around our necks for generations. We owe less than $200 million currently on the Argyle International Airport. What is very interesting, if we did not build it in the way we built it, that airport would have cost in excess of $1 billion. Way in excess of $1 billion. But the manner in which we built it with solidarity from 10 countries and with the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it is there as very wonderful in helping to transform. But at the time, I was loco, Dr. Debnat. In fact, after the airport was built, when we are coming to the conclusion of the construction, I indicated publicly that on the basis of information brought to me by the International Airport Development Company leaders, that they wanted my input as to whether they should have jet bridges, because they each cost $1 million to purchase and then cost to install. I said, well, $2 million US plus a little more, 5.4 million EC, $6 million. We're going to end up with a number close to $750 million EC. I said, let's do it. I said, we have close to 100 inches of rain per year. Sometimes very, very rainy. You can't come out, you won't be able to come off the plane. I say, in Barbados, which has 60 inches. They have problems because there are no jet bridges there. You know what the leader of the opposition, the current leader of the opposition, said to me then? He said, I have champagne taste and Marby pocket. It's fresh think I could have jet bridges when Barbados don't have, when Grenada don't have, when St. Lucia don't have.
Just a moment, let's get you. Mic'd up properly.
with people. No, I don't use those words.
That you say I have Mobby.
Yeah, go find the quotation and I'll see. Well, if it is, it's poetic, but I mean, I don't recall saying those words. And so what you're saying there, you're trying, of course, to set up a straw man. But what you need to do is to debate the bill we have before us. Talk about the resolution. Yes, you're misrepresenting me.
I'm not
Totally,
misrepresenting you.
completely.
I want you to check
You
the
see, I
Hansard.
sit here patiently and quietly. I don't talk things that I don't know to be true. I did say that you should not have that those bridges in Barbados that they function without them, and now you're having problems with them, aren't you?
Where's the problem with them?
The air conditioning don't work, the glass break, the rusting. You're gonna have to replace them pretty soon.
But you know, this is amazing.
But anyway, let's get back to the bill.
This is
We're
amazing.
talking here about the Port Authority, the loan, and that's what we want to debate, because I want to debate it too.
The point is this: I had Mobby pocket and champagne taste. I fresh. I'm doing very good. I'm doing very good. I'm doing very, very good. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, there is every jet bridge in any part of the world are going to have problems from time to time. Because your toilet may need fixing. You don't have a toilet. I'm just answering the inanity uttered by the leader of the opposition. I am not only that, and you were on the auditor's report for half an hour. On half an hour. Yes, but the point, you never made the connection. You never made the connection. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance outlined in the important matters for this resolution. He quoted the section. If the Honorable Member for Central Kingston read section 26, you would see that what we are doing here is perfectly within the law. He says what the terms are. The resolution spoke to the terms. The loan period for 10 years. Loan type of amortized bond registered with the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. Interest rate 5.75%. The Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which will deal with the bonds for $20 million. And the Grenada Cooperative Bank will fund $20 million. The Port Authority has $10 million. And that the financial institutions say, we want the government guarantee. And that's why we're here. This doesn't add to the government's debt other than as a contingent liability if the port does not come up and pay the money. And on the projections, the Ministry of Finance, the professionals working with the port are satisfied that this is doable, and so too the banks. You see, the opposition has to stop this bad habit on really transformative projects to stop this petty opposition. It's anti-national. You heard many of your it's all right, talk. I will sit down till you finish talk. You will talk. If the speaker allow you to talk.
They're listening and stop being petty and violent anger just like
Honorable members, please. Honorable members, we have a debate.
I
We have a
been pe-
debate.
I have not been petty on one single thing.
Honorable members,
I haven't been petty on one single thing. Because I'm putting the issues front and center and it's burning you all. It's burning you all. I know you all think the election campaign started already. It ain't start, you know. It ain't start, you know. You could always do that. I'm the longest serving member in this house. Only one person has served longer than me here as a parliamentary representative is Sir James Mitchell. I'm the longest serving prime minister, not only here, but in the Caribbean and the hemisphere too. Add that.
honorable members, if I can direct members' attention to the resolution at hand and ask that we continue with the debate.
Madam Speaker. So I repeat those terms. And then the Honorable Minister went on and said, these are the equipment which we have to purchase. And he had said that there was a consultant on the matter. He said that there was an internal procurement arrangement, and it detailed the equipment as to what is needed. Mobile harbor crane, container handling unit, diesel forklifts, LPG forklifts, electric forklifts, 60 forklifts, Bobcat, terminal tractors, roll trailers, pilot launch, garbage truck, road sweeper, man lift, mobile container scanner, twin cab pickups, mobile fuel tank, shuttle bus, PV system, solar power, main transformer, scanner exclosure. And he said, Madam Speaker, that equipment, most of this equipment is coming in November and December. There have been an ordering, there are contracts for some. Well, contracts for them, but down payment including contracts. Now there's no down payment. But we are reaching the point where we have to pay. There's no mystery about October. It's because we have to do it. The banks are waiting on us. And then another set of equipment in January, and one piece in the first week of May. But the Port Authority leadership indicated to me that if that equipment is needed to come earlier, it can come earlier. He gave all what is essential for any resolution of this type. But it is evident that the opposition intended to do bombast on this. But their space was narrowed by the Minister of Finance. And then they start to nitpick here and there and try to see if they could create some opposition. But if you're opposed to it, I'm telling you, put your name down as opposing it. Show that you're a man or a woman. Vote against it. It will be passed here today. Tonight, I could assure you of that. Put your name down so that people will say that we spend all this money on the port. In fact, Madam Speaker, sometimes it's necessary to state the obvious. Sometimes it's necessary to state the obvious. Madam Speaker, when the Minister of Finance Madam Speaker, spoke on the budget, the Minister of Finance said, we have the money for the construction of the port. We also are having the Port Authority make the financial arrangements for the equipment. He even said what we have put in these estimates may not be sufficient for the whole year, but we are being very, very cautious. We don't want the estimates to appear bloated. We'll have to come sometime in the next 2 weeks with a supplementary appropriation bill and a supplementary estimate so that we can journalize the additional monies which are already there in the kitty to build the project. And then, Madam Speaker, how much time do I have remaining, Madam Speaker?
You have 15 minutes remaining.
I'm obliged, Madam Speaker. It's well known. I could go for the morning, you know. I could go for the morning. It's every morning I get 4 o'clock in any case. When I come out of bed, Eloise asks me, say, go and milk your cattle, because that's what I used to do at 4 o'clock in the morning. What? You know what my wife does tell me?
Honorable members, let's continue with the
You want to
debates.
get inside my bedroom now? No, but I am making a point. You missed the substance of the point I'm making and gone tangentially. Take time and learn now. Take time and learn. Take time and learn. Take time and learn. Madam Speaker, when the port, this is the first phase, Madam Speaker, and we already made that clear. We are going to need additional resources for a second phase for the Grenadines Wharf down in further to the west at the same site. We had made that point from the plan from the very beginning. And what are we going to do with all this primary real estate which we have here? That is where the Honorable Member for Central Kingston was on to something. We must have 2 or more cruise ship piers there to accommodate larger ships. And we will have health and wellness shops. We will have a boutique hotel. This is the plan. Right where those places, the current port is located, we will have a cultural center, touristic shops. And we have already done the examination, the preliminary inquiry, for tunnel under Cane Garden Point to connect with the new city to deal with the issues of transportation. When we first articulated that, they say it's they said, what did they say? Remind me. Tunnel vision, they called it. That I had tunnel vision. I was crazy, and now I have tunnel vision. Madam Speaker, I've asked the good Lord already not to allow me to leave any unfinished task behind. I've asked him that. No. Madam Speaker, we have been engaged in talking to a number of potential investors. It's a huge vision. And there are 3 components to it. The cruise ship pier, as what the Honorable Member for Central Kingston said. I think in the next term, when you get fed up and you realize you'll come and we'll work together on the two cruise ship pier, Honorable Member for Central Kingston. Because I know you sound as though you have a passion for that. And I will accommodate you, not on this side of the house, but accommodate you in some way to use your professional skills. And I'm sure you will participate because you're a patriot. You're a patriot. And I will recall that you said it here, But that is part of the vision which we have. The second part is the tunnel. The third part is the city, of which the 78, 80 million US dollar hospital is the anchor project. And if you notice how we function, every time we have a big transformative project and it has started, we go on to deal with others. Because you either have the vision or you don't have the vision. It's either you're looking forward or you're looking backward. We are going forward. There are some persons, Chanel had sung that very much. Chanel Nanton. We not turn back. We don't look forward to the past. No, we don't do that. We keep our eyes gazed on the future in the interest of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Madam Speaker, I want finally to reiterate so that everyone who is listening to know. Section 26 of the Act, the St. Vincent and Grenadines Port Authority Act, subsection 2. The power to borrow under this section may be exercised to A, borrow and reborrow monies by the issue and sale of debentures or debenture stock or other security for the purpose of raising the funds of the authority for the effectual exercise by it of the powers conferred by this Act. B, create and issue debentures or debenture stock or other security for any debentures or debenture stock or other security issued in respect of monies previously borrowed by the authority and not repaid. C, create, issue, and sell debentures or debenture stock or other security for the purpose of borrowing money for redeeming any loans owing by the authority and for the paying of expenses incurred in the issue and creation of the debentures or debenture stock or other security or otherwise carrying out the provisions of this Act. D, effect any concession authorized by this section, either by arrangement with the holders of existing debentures or debenture stock or other security, or by the purchase of debentures or debenture stock or other security out of monies raised by the sale of the debentures or debenture stock or other security, or partly in the one way or partly in another. It specifies what we are doing here is perfectly in order. Madam Speaker, I went to the Republic of Taiwan and I went down to Kaohsiung, where they have tremendous expertise, the largest port in Taiwan and one of the largest in Asia. And I had a delegation come here and hold discussions, including, Madam Speaker, the question as to whether any investors would have an interest in buying into our port. So that, as the Honorable Member for Central Kingston said, that if you sell shares, you would be able to reduce the extent of the indebtedness. Of course, you'll have to share profits. You'll have to share profits, Madam Speaker. And you'll have to make sure that the government remains pretty much in exercising the rights as a majority shareholder. Or if in any future time when if anybody thinks that they'd want us to be a minority shareholder, I wouldn't be wrong. That there are proper safeguards put in place. All those are modalities. And up to that point, I was saying the member for Central Kingston going well. There was a certain symmetry in the ideas. Differences, but nevertheless, tending towards some symmetrical conclusions. And then he departed and went somewhere else because he had to score some political points along the way, and I don't mind that. I'm urging you to support this resolution. We can't build a port and then you refuse to equip it, to provide the means for the operation of the port, because you want to follow the man who ran away, the man from West Kingston. That is your intellectual guide and leader. No wonder he's scrunching around looking for a savior. I'm obliged, Madam Speaker.
For the debate. Yes, I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise to make a contribution to the debate on this very important and seemingly very hot topic in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, there's been a lot said, much of it, especially as was presented by the last speaker, had nothing to do with the bill or with the resolution. So let's go back to where it starts. That is to say, we are here as legislators being asked to provide the guarantee or the security for a loan that a statutory corporation intends to take out with two financial institutions. The Prime Minister clarified it just now when he said, it is not a loan that this Parliament is taking out that's a charge immediately on the consolidated fund. It's a contingent liability. Madam Speaker, when again, setting the record straight, because there's a lot of loose talk on the other side. Yes, on your side. And you notice I didn't interrupt you when you talk, so I'd appreciate it if you don't interrupt me when I talk. So, Madam Speaker, what they are seeking to do is to make out that somehow we on the side of this House, that we are obstructionists, that we don't want to see projects take place in this country, that we are opposed to anything that is good, we anti-colonial and all that nonsense. All nonsense. Because, Madam Speaker, when the bill came to the House and it was debated, we supported the request for the loan as it was presented in the Parliament at the time to build a port. The minister indicated that $100 million was being received from the British government as a grant, that $120 million was being borrowed from the Caribbean Development Bank at a very low interest rate, concessional rate, and that the additional funding was being obtained from Taiwan. We said, Madam Speaker, we have concerns, of course, about the escalating debt in this country. The fact that we have been seeing the debt climb and the ability to service it becomes more and more difficult. So that essential, and we didn't just make this up, the what they call the thing, Fitz, the accountability mechanism, fiscal accountability mechanism, whatever it's called. Yes, the government institution. I like its report, but I don't remember the name. But what it said, Madam Speaker, is that, yeah, you got to be careful with the debt. Because if you do not manage your debt carefully, that is to say, debt that you obtain them at the lowest interest rates, and that you make sure that you service them, and that whatever you invest them into, that they are productive. That is not wasteful investments. So you have a return. You can pay, you can service your debt. If you don't manage that, then you run the risk, Madam Speaker, of being unable to meet these social requirements and obligations that we have as government to provide basic services for our people. That was the body that they set up. So that is the context, Madam Speaker, in which we must always raise questions about sizable borrowings by the government. $650 million to build a port is no little bit of money. And except for $100 million, all of it is borrowed. And you might say, well, okay, the terms are concessional, but it still comes with an interest rate, and it still has to be repaid. It's still recorded as a debt on the books of the country. And it shows up as a part of the debt that says we have a debt to GDP ratio that continues to climb. And for those people who think that this doesn't make sense or it's not important, they need to reconsider, because that affects your effectiveness or your ability to borrow, continue to borrow at concessional rates. So, Madam Speaker, it is not inappropriate for us on this side of the House to raise those concerns. So here we have the government comes, the minister says he has a resolution, having borrowed $650 million that we supported, even with the reservations that we had at the time and still do. But he doesn't know how to take support and be gracious about it. We say, listen, we give you the benefit of the doubt on this one, because we understand its importance for the development of the country, even though today we know it cannot pay. You're building for the future. We give you the benefit of the doubt. So when you come here now trying to stir up ants' nests and behave as though somehow only you on that side of the House have the interest of the people in this country at heart, that is offensive, Madam Speaker. Very offensive. And so, Madam Speaker, we come here today and they're goading us. Oh, don't support it. That's what I want to see, because now they have a red flag to go and wave around and say, watch. They ain't support this. Well, I tell you something. The concerns that we express here about the debt in this country are being repeated and brought to us and said by people far and wide in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we supported the loan for the port, not the Port Authority, for the hospital recently, I was confronted by several members of the public who felt that we should not be taking on more debt. In fact, in a recent radio program, I was asked if we think that maybe we should not be doing this project now because of the current conditions of the country and do something else. I said, no, I think we need the hospital. It's long overdue. Especially with the way the present government underfunds the present institution. So, Madam Speaker, we have before us, in addition to the $650 million, a request for us to support the Port Authority in borrowing $40 million. Now, I must say, Madam Speaker, when we approved the $650 million, I felt that the money that we were getting would give us a completed project. The equipment that they're talking about here, of course, is essential equipment. I'm not going to second guess somebody who runs a port and to say you don't need a travel lift or you don't need one this size or you need two, not three. I'm not getting into that. The point is that I believe, Madam Speaker, that the funding that we had was presented with a completed port. The minister now makes a big deal and says, no, they always intended to borrow more money or to get the Port Authority to put in, to put its, what's the word to use? Put some skin in the game. Well, that skin is our skin, Madam Speaker. The Port Authority is completely owned by the government. We're coming here to guarantee a loan that if the defaultant becomes a debt on the consolidated fund. So this notion that you're getting this Port Authority as if it's some, distant institution to put some skin in the game is a fallacy. So here's where we come. The Port Authority wants to buy this equipment. The minister talks about how profitable this Port Authority is. He ain't no figures, nothing to back it up. He just say it's profitable. They can manage to service a debt of $40 million at an interest rate of how much? 5.75%. That is not a concessional loan. 5.75%. They have to service a debt of $40 million. He said that the money is going to be used by the Port Authority to buy all this equipment. I wrote some of it down. But he also said that they're going to use some of the money to consolidate some existing debt. Well, I want to know what those existing debt, what they comprise of. And if you have $10 million, where are you going to borrow money to consolidate a debt when you have money that you could be using to pay off the debt? I don't get that. How much is the debt that they're going to be consolidating? How much money are they going to borrow? As the member for Central Kingston said earlier today, to dig another hole to fill a hole. It was said almost in passing, but Madam Speaker. But importantly, if you're going to borrow money to buy equipment, then that's what the money should be paid into. Don't tell me that you're going to consolidate debt and I don't know how much it is. And what exactly are you consolidating? Are you going to get a lower interest rate? Madam Speaker, we are told, and the member for West Kingston was quite right to raise the issue, that the Port Authority, they've done all their research. We haven't been privy to any of it, of course, because the minister comes and he rattles off all these things and they have these prices and so on and so forth. And we are to assume that these are the best that we can do, the best equipment that money can buy, or at least for that price. And we are then to make an assumption that this is all for the good. But Madam Speaker, it takes a lot of gall on the part of the members on the other side of the House to come with such light and flimsy evidence and to question our integrity and our motives when we raise legitimate questions about these matters that they're bringing before this Honorable House. And all that is, Madam Speaker, is just red meat. It is just seeking to dismiss legitimate arguments by characterization. If you characterize something or somebody in a certain way, then you don't have to deal with what they say. But you have a sense than that. And the people of this country are fed up, Madam Speaker, being taken for granted. They can't understand. The assumption is, it seems to me on the other side, they can't understand what is going on. We have to lead and have to show them what they should be doing. I don't see it that way. You got to humble yourself. And what we have now, Madam Speaker, is a situation where we are asked to help out the Port Authority. Now, I don't know anything about how the Port Authority functions. You know? Usually if somebody comes and says, Friday, I want to go borrow some money because I have to go get an operation and so forth. It's going to cost $500 or $5,000 or whatever. And I have to take a little loan. Can you help me out to go by the bank and sign something? They come to me personally and they ask me. They tell me about their condition. And usually, obviously, I can't assist. But at least they have the decency to come to me and ask. Here you have the Port Authority. As the minister is coming here, we have no idea how the Port Authority is managed, how its ability to repay, but they're asking us to essentially guarantee $40 million of borrowing on their behalf. Now, what the minister is asking again is for me to say, well, listen, we give them the benefit of the doubt because we don't reach so far. You don't spend $168 million. Is that US or EC? You don't spend $168 million on the port. So therefore, we have to get the equipment to get it done. And that ain't going to be all of it, you know. Do we now have to get additional money because they mentioned furniture and computers and so forth? Are all of those things going to be covered? Yes, groaning over there, because I know that sometimes when we say things here, they try to belittle it rather than dealing with the factual relevance of it. So, Madam Speaker, the project of the port has to be completed. We supported the initiative in completing the port. This loan here today, or this exercise here today, the only reason, Madam Speaker, that I distinguish this from the additional borrowing, this is why I asked, earlier for the clarification from the minister responsible for ports, when she indicated that somehow this loan was already approved, and we're just basically coming to Parliament now to I don't know what. But in fact, what it is, it's an additional loan by the Port Authority, and we are just being asked to be the guarantor. The minister, I'm taking him at his word, and the Prime Minister as well, at his word, when they said that the Port Authority can carry this loan. They said that the Port Authority is profitable, it is solvent, it is well run, it can carry a $40 million loan, even while it operates a new facility that is way in excess of the needs that we have currently for it. And will have considerable additional costs to make it run, just like Argyle is doing now. From $13 million to $30 million annually. The difference between Arnesville and Argyle. So these are things that have to be taken into account. And I want to raise them up front, Madam Speaker, because I don't want to go out and talk to my constituents and they say, Friday, why are you supporting that? And we don't quite understand it. So I'm canvassing the issues here. So, if the Port Authority is able to service the loan and the banks require a guarantee, you have to ask yourself the question is, the minister has given the Port Authority a passing scorecard. He said they're doing well. Why is it then that the bank can't take that as enough of evidence? Look at the balance sheet, look at the performance record of the Port Authority over the past 10 years and say, okay, yes, they can carry the loan. Why do we have to provide a guarantee for that loan? And the thing is, we read from the Act, the minister read from the Act. The Act doesn't say that you must come to Parliament and must have a guarantee. It's if you need a guarantee, you have to come to Parliament. But if you can get a loan on your own, you don't have to trouble the Minister of Ports, you don't have to trouble the Minister of Finance, and you don't have to trouble Parliament. It's quite clear that the financial institutions are not prepared to lend the Port Authority based on the strength of the performance of the Port Authority by itself. That is why the guarantee is required. So there is some concern there. Don't pretend that somehow that this is, some high-flying, highly profitable institution that is so well run that we don't need to be concerned about the guarantee that we are giving here today. We must be concerned about it. And so I want the minister to make a promise to this honorable house. Today, we are offered a guarantee. It is not yet a charge on the consolidated fund, and I hope it never becomes so. It is not yet a loan that is being approved by this parliament. If the Port Authority defaults on the loan and then the charge, it becomes a charge on the consolidated fund, then it becomes a debt for the country overall. If that happens, the minister has an obligation to come to this parliament and tell us that that has happened. That now we have not just a guarantee, but we have obtained, we have become the repairs of this debt, and the debt has become a charge on the consolidated fund. I think the minister owes it to this parliament and to the people to say that this is how we will proceed. I can't, Madam Speaker, be asked for us on this side of the House to approve the guarantee, giving the guarantee to the Port Authority to have the loan, and then I have no say whatsoever or no right to get any information as to how the loan is performing. If you are in default, it now becomes a charge in the consolidated fund. It now becomes a debt that has to be approved by Parliament. It must come back to this Parliament. And I want the minister to give that guarantee when he gets up to wrap up his presentation. It is good economic hygiene. It is good for the guardrails of the way in which our finances are supposed to function. And more than that, he would be backing up his words, Madam Speaker, when he said that we don't have anything to worry about. Because if we have nothing to worry about, then he could say, all right, if it happened, I will bring it here because I know I will never have to do that. It's, to me, Madam Speaker, a requirement of the duty of the minister to do that. And I hope that he takes my request seriously and offer that pledge to this honorable house. Madam Speaker, so I've set the context and I've told you the history of the Port Authority, the Port Modernization Project, and our role in it. And anybody who tries to make it appear other than it is, Madam Speaker, will be corrected as we are doing here in this honorable house. But I just want, Madam Speaker, to respond to a number of the comments that were raised during this debate. And they're relevant to the way in which, Madam Speaker, the members on the other side, especially the Prime Minister, were seeking to characterize the members on this side of the House as somehow we are anti-projects, we are anti the country, we are anti-progress. This, Madam Speaker, from a party that opposed the cruise ship berth that is now the savior of the tourism sector. When Hurricane Lenny mashed up the cruise ship berth, they applauded. They applauded. Who? Madam Speaker, this is the party, Madam Speaker. Hey now. All right, it never happened. It never happened, but
Honorable members.
Memories, Madam Speaker. We're going down memory lane.
Please.
We're going down memory lane.
Please, honorable members, honorable leader of the opposition, I have stopped.
We're going down memory lane. How much time I have, Madam Speaker? About 15 minutes, 20 minutes? 21 minutes. Yes. Thank you. So, Madam
Yes.
Speaker, here again.
Start your time.
This is the party. This is the party who dare to lecture us, Madam Speaker, when we raise legitimate questions. Wait, guys. Hey, this is what they said, Madam Speaker. When the NDP said they're going to build the international airport at Arnersville, they said they're going to lie down on the airport and they will make sure that nothing was done there to put the international airport at Arnersville. They said that. Madam Speaker, when the NDP, listen, we're going down memory lane. This is the party that dares to lecture us on this side. The party that dares to lecture us. You see? Come on, guys.
Honorable members.
I'm talking to you too.
Honorable members.
I'm talking to you, one vote. One vote, one term, Carlos. I'm talking to you too.
Honorable members. Honorable members.
Don't worry, we are the remedy for you. We are the remedy for you. We are the remedy for you, don't worry.
Honorable
Listen, Madam
members.
Speaker, hear the thing. This party here, these guys on the other side, they oppose the Utley Hall project, a transformative project. Madam Speaker, not only did they oppose it, they killed it. They killed it, Madam Speaker. You go down there now and see it. You go down there now and see it. Not only did they oppose it, they killed it. And all because of what? And not only that, they tried, Madam Speaker. They had, the first thing they did when they come into office, they set up a commission of inquiry to try to hold Sir James Mitchell and the NDP liable. And what happened to them? What happened? $7 million wasted. The Privy Council threw out a case, and they didn't even have the nerve to say, well, listen, we're discontinuing the commission. It just faded out of existence. Yes. And you go down to Utley Hall now. I ask you the question in Parliament today, and your answers, Madam Speaker, they just tells me that they have not given any thought to it, and all it was an expression of words. I believe not a word you said there today, because what you are talking about has absolutely no chance of coming into reality. The only way Utley Hall will succeed is under an NDP government, and I will make it happen. Because you're just talking nonsense. In the same way that the Minister of Transport and Works, I'm telling you about Bluff Road going to finish next year, honestly. It was supposed to finish in February. In February, 100 feet of road. You talk about incompetence of a government.
Honorable members.
100 feet of road and you can't finish it in a year?
Honorable members.
Yeah, it resonated with me, and now you wake up now too. Yeah,
Honorable members.
that's what I want to hear.
Please. I turn your direction.
Well, you're the
to the resolution.
most incompetent minister ever in the history of this country.
Honorable members.
Madam Speaker.
Order. Honorable members, please.
So, Madam Speaker,
Please continue the debate on the resolution.
they kill the Utley Hall.
The opposition.
They try to kill Utley Hall. They try to kill Utley Hall. But we will revive it. Madam Speaker, these are the people who want to lecture you. And when they lose the election in 1988, what they do? They talk about hungry for power. Yeah, 1998. And when they talk about hungry for power, they have the gall to lecture somebody about hungry for power. Yeah? When you block the roads, you cause chaos in this country that we're still trying to recover from. When you said that you'd make the country ungovernable, and you did. Yes, well, there you go. Madam Speaker, they have nothing that they can lecture us about. You see? They think they alone could talk. 24 years in opposition. Yeah, that hurt you. That hurt you. Yeah,
Yes.
Your legacy as a minister, but you can't point to one thing.
Honorable members.
You can't point to one thing. Yes, I know the Oya Fisheries Complex. I know the Oya Fisheries Complex. Yeah.
Honorable members.
All right.
Honorable members, please.
Anyway, Madam Speaker.
Yes. Honorable members, just a moment, honorable members. Honorable members.
Yeah, we must your corn, yeah, all right. We must your corn.
Honorable members, just a moment, just a moment. No.
So, Madam Speaker,
Thank you.
we have to come back to, so the long and the short of it is this, Madam Speaker. We have the interests of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at heart. We always do. This is why when we come to this honorable house, if there is legislation that we support, and you will check the record and see, Madam Speaker, yourself, that we support most of the legislation that come to this parliament. By far. Watch, listen, man, you had your 2 minutes now. Oh, gosh, I should not talk about you at all. You had your 2 minutes. Madam Speaker, so we have a situation now where we are in support of the project. This loan that comes to the parliament is not a debt on the parliament. I have no problem with it. The time when I have problem with it is if there's a default and then it comes here as a debt on the consolidated fund. The minister has given me his promise. He has given me the assurance that that will never happen. And I expect that when he gets up, he will give this honorable house the assurance as well that if there is ever a default on the debt, that he will make it a part of the proceedings of this house, that we will be aware of it. That must happen. And under those conditions, Madam Speaker, there's nothing for us to be worried about. That's what the minister said. But here is the thing. Ultimately, what we have to do as a country is to make this country work. When you have investments on the scale of the port that they are doing, then you have to make sure that it delivers for the people. You can't just have it as a big project, a shiny object that you stand up and brag about, biggest ever, transformational. I heard the Prime Minister use those words, that they have transformative projects. What is transformative about it if people are unemployed in record numbers? If poverty continues to grow in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? If agriculture is at its lowest state since this country was founded? If you can't have industries developing in the country when people are the lowest paid in the region, what is transformational about any projects that they have done? Yeah? We are not exporting. I mean, the port still has to function. You have to create products to export. You can't just make it so that it's easier to import cars. You can't just make it so that it's easier for us to import things. What are we producing that will make this investment pay back in the future? Or is it just an election gimmick? Is it just a big, fancy, shiny object to try to bamboozle people? Like the empty talk about tunnel under King Garden and all that nonsense. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, when we see a project that has a potential, and the reason, why the port is necessary is that the ports in this country, Madam Speaker, the ports in this country have been allowed to deteriorate to a state where they are barely functioning. And that is why it became so urgent and so important that the new port be built. The scale of it is beyond what I contemplated. And certainly, I think the minister said so himself, that the cost of it has gone up more than they anticipated. But I heard something again today that worried me even more. He said, when they were putting forward a plan for this thing, they said it's a 3-phase plan. They're doing the first phase now, which is the import, the export, the international part of it, the container port. And then you have the part now that's going to be for the ferries and for the inter-island boats. But it sounds like there's no funding for that already. So you're talking about this project is going to cost more than the Argyle International Airport, based on their projections. And so the point is that what are we producing to export? Where is the investment in the productive sectors to ensure that the efficiencies that we're going to create at the port will benefit our farmers and our exporters. There is no comprehensive plan of development. It is just a project. And that is where, Madam Speaker, I find it hard to support the grandiose claims of this present administration. The linkages that they need to build between the projects and the people are always given second place. In fact, the people, Madam Speaker, don't even seem to factor in. It's like they don't have the capacity to be the creators of their own destiny, to be the subjects of the change that they want to bring. Somebody else has to do it for them. But we have to change that, Madam Speaker, because development is not about projects only. The development is most importantly about people. It's about, Madam Speaker, developing the productive skills of our people, engaging them with the means of production in our country, however you want to describe those, and making them more productive. This is why projects, Madam Speaker, like this, where they have the potential to create greater efficiencies, may work. But they could only work, Madam Speaker, if you have the vision to link it to the economy beyond just the port, beyond just the airport, or beyond just any particular investment that they're seeking to do. Bigger is not always better. And their thing is, if it's big, it's good because you could brag about it. I am more interested, Madam Speaker, is how what we do transform lives. And as a poor country, every investment we make, the first question we should ask is, how is it going to affect the lives of the people of our country? If you can't answer that, then you wait until you find the answer. You don't go into it because you get the money or because it look good on your resume. Too much of that is happening in this present administration. Too much of it. And the people are sick and tired of it because they're getting poorer for it. And nothing that we heard today from the government side shows that they have learned anything for all the years they've wasted in government. And so, Madam Speaker, every rope has an end, and the sooner this one comes, the better. The only thing, Madam Speaker, that this government, I shouldn't say the only thing, but one of the things that it will be remembered for most is for taxing people and for increasing debt. Because when the people look around, they say, okay, you got all these big things, but my life is harder than it was before. I am still catching hell. The fisher folk in worse condition than they were before. The farmers, worse off they've ever been. The roads in this country, Madam Speaker, they're like obstacle courses. They can't ever fix a 50-foot piece of road. Everything takes a long time to do under this administration because they're so damn incompetent. Yeah? You caution me with the language. Okay. Well, they are so seriously incompetent, Madam Speaker. Terribly incompetent. And so, when we hear of your comments from the debate here today, reflect upon, Madam Speaker, the fact that we on this side of the House, we want to see progress. But we are not going to give this government a blank check. We're going to hold them accountable, and I've set my conditions in my presentation here today, and I hope the Minister takes them seriously. Thank you.
For the debate, well, this is a strange one. I expect that someone will give way, especially since I'm going to invite the Deputy Chair to take the chair. So let's settle this before I get up. Who's giving way?
5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, could they both give way? I just want to ask you a question. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask a question about how late we intend to go tonight. I am not staying till 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll tell you that. And I want you to look at 12.5 in the rules. They do not contemplate unlimited debate. It talks about specific issues that are that are specified.
Your interpretation on that is incorrect.
What?
Member. That's not.
That's well.
Yeah.
Check it out. It
I
cannot be that a debate can go on for 3 days straight.
Honorable.
And so, yes, it can, based on what the interpretation you have there.
Honorable member, your interpretation on that is incorrect. I appreciate what you're asking me, but I cannot say at this point in time. So, which one of you will graciously give way? You give way? Thank you so much. But just before, now that we have that, very well. If I can invite yes, Minister of Tourism. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and let me welcome you to the chair. Madam Speaker, I am making a brief contribution to this resolution, also on the basis of some of the comments I've heard this evening relative to what I would consider to be a very straightforward, perfectly legal and in order resolution that is tabled before this Honorable House. Nothing that is here is unusual to the parliamentary procedure and the process of tabling